Hey everyone, today we're diving into some truly unforgettable stories, real-life moments where people accidentally change someone else's life forever. These are the stories of small choices, unintended consequences, and the ripple effects that can last a lifetime. Grab a seat and let's explore what happens when life takes a turn you never saw coming.
Years ago, I went to the racetrack and brought along this 17-year-old kid, Alan. He'd never seen a real horse before, total city boy. He bet like $2 a race, small stuff. Then came a horse named My Little Mitzvah. Alan lit up. A Jewish horse? I have to bet on her. The odds were 30-1, and I told him, buddy, that horse is pure chaos on legs. But he did it anyway, and she won. Not just won, absolutely yeeted the rest of the horses into the fog. Alan had actually bet $10 instead of $2. That payout was huge for him, his first real taste of easy money. And that was it. He got hooked. Years later, he told me, I can't stop. Even if you gave me $1 million, I'd lose it in a year. Nothing worse than winning big the first time you play. My close friend had to go in for surgery after doctors found an aneurysm. I was there with her family the day they prepped her for the operation. Right before they took her in, she handed me her phone and said, "Can you hold on to this until I wake up?" She didn't wake up. Years of heavy puffing had wrecked her body, and the doctors couldn't find a healthy tissue match to save her. I turned her phone back on and gave it to her husband. Within a day, everything fell apart. Turns out she'd been living a double life. Secret romance, money missing from the family business, and even a car she'd gifted to her side quest guy. It broke all of us. I still feel torn up. Not just because she's gone, but because she dragged me into it. I think she knew I'd find out and hoped I'd cover for her. I love and miss you, Amy, but what you did to your family still stings.
I stepped in when some of my close friends were going through dark thoughts. I told someone who could help, and after that, they completely cut me off. At the time, their lives were a total mess. Years later, they're both alive, married, and, I hope, happy. They didn't invite me to the wedding, but that's okay. I did the right thing. They're still here, and that's what matters. Funny thing, the same thing happened to me once. A friend in high school told the school counselor she was worried about me, and I got sent to mandatory therapy. I was furious then. It basically ended our friendship. But now, years later, I realized she probably saved my life. I got better, went to college, healed, and now I'm genuinely happy. If she ever reads this, you changed everything for me. People like you, the quiet lifesavers, leave a mark that never fades.
Back when I worked at a hardware store, I accidentally dropped an entire pallet of lime from about 20 feet up. It missed a guy standing below him by inches. I jumped out of the forklift, cursing about the mess, then saw him. He was fine, but pale as a ghost, eyes wide like it just met his guardian angel personally. I apologized over and over, but he didn't say a word, just walked straight out of the store. That was before stores started blocking off aisles during forklift work. Every time I think about it, I still get that gut punch feeling.
Back in 5th grade, this one kid kept copying my answers on every test. I told the teacher, then deliberately bombed one of the exams on purpose.
When they compared our tests, it was obvious he'd been copying word for word. They gave him a reading test and found out he was basically illiterate. He got held back a year. I don't really regret it though. The guy was kind of a jerk. Hopefully he at least learned to read after that.
One time, I almost started a forest fire. Totally my fault, pure stupidity.
I was burning a pile of trash and didn't bother to take any safety precautions. Then the wind picked up. Suddenly the grass around it caught fire. I ran back and forth trying to put it out, but every gust brought the flames back to life. Eventually I sprinted to the house, called the fire department, then ran outside again dragging hoses trying to reach the burning spot. By some miracle, I managed to put it out before the firefighters even got there. About half an acre burned down. If I just waited for them instead of acting, the fire would have hit the trees. My hands were covered in blisters from swinging a shovel and smacking the flames. The grass looked green, but underneath was a thick layer of dead, dry stuff, basically tinder. Lesson learned, never underestimate wind plus dry weeds. It was terrifying.
In my first year of college, another student assaulted me in the dorms. I spoke up about it.
After I did, 2 more girls came forward with similar stories. A few months later, the school discovered he was growing banned plants right there in his room. That got him kicked out of the dorms. Years later, I heard he was expelled altogether, got into gambling trouble, and eventually couldn't handle it anymore. I don't feel guilty. I told the truth.
There was this dude at work who never did anything. Always calling in sick, always too tired, and every time he did, his workload dumped straight onto my desk. One day he called in, said he had the worst migraine in the galaxy. Then I saw him post concert selfies that same night. I reported it. 2 weeks later, he got fired. Since his wife refused to work, they ended up losing their house. I know it was technically justified, but
Yeah, that one still stinks.
I was filming a school assembly for the yearbook, one of those say nope to dope events back in the late 90s.
There were these big, muscular guys tearing phone books in half and doing all sorts of look how strong I am stuff. Classic anti-Magic Beans campaign energy. Later, I was reviewing the tape at home, my mom's side, and asked for a copy. She'd paid for the film and processing, and the school would reimburse her later, so sure, why not? Turns out, Mom worked in HR, and one of those muscle dudes was one of her employees. Small problem. That guy was collecting disability payments and claiming he couldn't even get out of bed. Oops, sorry random strong guy, didn't mean to expose your side hustle.
I was house sitting for some friends while they were on vacation.
Construction was happening outside and someone accidentally damaged the toilet drain pipe. It cracked, flooded the bathroom, total chaos. I cleaned it all up and called the building management to get the toilet replaced before my friends got home. That one call set off a chain reaction. Turns out they were illegally subletting the apartment and they didn't even know it. The management company found out and they got kicked out. At the time, I felt awful, but honestly, things worked out. They moved back to Australia, built a great life there, and now we can laugh about it. Eventually.
I work in finance, and once I accidentally uncovered a $2.5 million magic numbers scheme. When the federal folks got involved, one of the women cut up and well, let's just say she rage quit life itself. That part still haunts me. Even after I left the firm, my old boss kept bringing it up, like, hey, remember that one case? Yeah, dude, I remember. I think about it more than I'd like to. My coworker kept mentioning someone named Jessica all the time, like Jessica and I went here, Jess and I did that, me and Jazz had an amazing weekend. One day, I randomly ran into him while he was out with his wife. He introduced her just as, this is my wife. And of course, without thinking, I said, oh, Jessica, so nice to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you. Yeah, her name was definitely not Jessica. Do I feel bad? Not really. He shouldn't have been sneaky behind his wife's back. And if you're gonna be shady, maybe don't make your side quest a part of your daily small talk.
I once suggested to a guy from school that he should consider joining the Army and later use the GI Bill to get into college.
He hadn't been accepted anywhere, so the idea sounded great to him. He enlisted. On his first deployment, his convoy hit a big boom surprise. He survived, but came back with serious health issues. I still can't shake the thought that it was my suggestion that sent him down that path.
I once introduced my best friend to the most chaotic person I've ever met, completely by accident.
It was a random Thursday. After class, my buddy Chris and I decided to hit a bar for happy hour. It was early. The place was almost empty. Maybe a dozen people plus a small group of 3 girls. One of them was exactly Chris's type. Tall, slim, dark hair, super friendly. But Chris was too shy to say a word. After a couple of drinks, I decided to help him out, went over and introduced us all. Her name was Veronica.
They hit it off fast, like end of the night forget your friends fast. By 10 p.m., they were basically in their own world. I was genuinely happy for him, though one of her friends joked he has no idea what he's getting into. I laughed it off. Big mistake. Veronica turned out to be a full-blown drama queen, manipulative, controlling, and let's just say financially high maintenance. Fake pregnancy scares, isolating him from friends, making him pay for everything, rent, bills, fancy stuff, the whole circus.
Chris came from a solid middle-class family and was super close with his parents. They noticed something was wrong early on, but by the time they stepped in, it was bad. He had drained his savings, maxed out credit cards tied to his parents, and was drowning in about $3,000 of debt. His folks finally drove 4 hours to bring him home and filed a restraining order against Veronica.
He dropped out, lost his football scholarship, and basically had to start over. We lost touch after he moved, but sometimes I still think about how differently things might have gone if we hadn't walked him to that bar that Thursday.
One day, my friend asked how our mutual buddy was doing at his new job. It was a huge deal for him, a big career break in a competitive field. I said he was doing great, super excited. She asked if he was stressed. I mentioned offhand that he had a few small issues with a coworker, but otherwise loved it. Turns out, she was friends with that coworker. She used my words to help that guy get my friend fired for creating a toxic environment. It felt like something out of a bad teen drama, except it completely wrecked his career.
It's been 4 years. He still hasn't found a solid job. We eventually started talking again. At first, he thought I'd done it on purpose, but once he saw how devastated I was, he forgave me. As for the friend who manipulated me, haven't spoken to her since. Good riddance. A guest skipped out without paying for his room, and my reminders were all ignored. Out of desperation, I Googled his name and city, found a number, and called it.
Jackpot, someone picked up. Only it was his wife. She was very interested in why her husband owed money to a hotel. Let's just say she found that whole conversation educational. By the time I realized he'd been using the hotel for his extracurricular activities, it was too late. Pro tip, folks,
If you're gonna live that double life, at least pay your dang hotel bills.
I do wedding photo and video work. At one wedding, half the guests spoke a language I didn't understand, and this is before auto-translation tools were a thing.
The bride's mom said something to the groom's mom in her native language, smiling but apparently not in a nice way. I didn't know, so I kept that clip in the final wedding video. Turns out the groom's mom spoke multiple languages. Let's just say the post-wedding drama was legendary. Yeah, my bad. So we kept losing boxes with parts during shipments to our clients and partner factories. The total losses hit around $20,000. Since I was in charge of operations, I had to handle it quietly until we figured out if someone from our team was involved. I hid a GPS tracker in one of the boxes and kept sending it back and forth between branches. Finally, I caught the pattern, and turned out one of our own employees and a FedEx driver were behind the whole mess. Our guy got fired through HR, and FedEx handled their driver internally. We didn't sue, and the prosecutors didn't open a case, said there wasn't enough evidence. I didn't think much about it for years until a coworker sent me an article. That same FedEx driver had ended up homeless and passed away from a too much happy dust situation. I don't know if my investigation directly caused it, but I'm sure it played a part in his downfall. And that still sits weirdly heavy with me. Years ago, I accidentally tanked someone's career. Not entirely my fault, but still. I was in therapy through a local agency and knew two of the therapists personally. I also had a friend who, well, didn't make it. At his funeral, one of the agency employees, someone I also knew, started gossiping about his case, revealing personal stuff she had no business accessing. She had literally gone into his confidential file. At my next session, I was furious. My therapist urged me to name the person who spilled the info. I refused. A few days later, another friend from the agency, a junior staffer, called me in a panic. She had no idea what happened, but said she was being blamed for the leak. Eventually, I was pressured into naming the real culprit. That ended the gossiping woman's career, permanently. It was handled so discreetly that, to this day, she has no idea I was the one who exposed her. This was back in the 1990s, and sometimes I think about confessing, but then I remind myself, she brought it on herself. My coworker went to Seattle, and I jokingly told him to bring back some of that cloudy stuff. It was 100% a joke. I've never touched that nonsense.
The day he came back, he called and said he was running late. Then he just didn't show up. Next day, I found out he got pulled over in another state, speeding hard to make it on time. The cops found a small stash of fun grass for personal use and one tiny bit of extra spicy stuff he'd picked up for me as a joke. That joke messed up his life. He avoided jail but got a long probation, had to move states, and spent years living rough. I apologized like a million times, but he never blamed me. He said it was his own dumb decision. Still, I'll always feel guilty about it. Back when I was a baby HR rep, an employee handed me a change of address form. The handwriting looked like a cat had run across the page, so I decided to double check and called the home number we had on file. His wife picked up. I asked her to confirm the new address, and she went, "What the heck are you talking about?" A few days later, the guy came to my desk and said quietly, I hadn't told her I moved out yet. Yeah, that was a fun day in human resources. When I was a teenager, I ran away from home and ended up living in a men's shelter in Hawaii. No driver's license, no car, but a big love for surfing and let's call them happy clouds. I gave $50 to some shady guy to rent a car from him for a few days. Turns out the car was stolen. I got arrested for possession and for driving the stolen car. I refused to give up the guy's name. I wasn't about to snitch, but the cops found a piece of paper in my stuff with his name, address, and phone number, plus my note, "Go incog, dude sketchy, be careful." Yeah, they used that note in the investigation. The guy was running a whole underground car chop shop, and he ended up doing time. Years later, I turned my life around completely. Got clean, built a career in law enforcement of all things. Then one day at a funeral, I ran into him. He came up, shook my hand, and said he didn't hold a grudge, that he'd found faith in prison and changed his life. That moment felt like a tiny piece of closure for both of us. Honestly, not wholesome. I used to work for a federal program. My boss had secretly hired her sister, didn't tell the higher-ups, which was a big no-no. Her sister was getting double pay and claiming hours she never worked. One day, my boss got lazy and told me to handle her timesheets. Any questions, just go to my supervisor, she said, then peaced out for the day. Well, I did have questions. I noticed weird inconsistencies right away and went to her boss to clarify. That kicked off an investigation that uncovered a bunch of shady money moves. My boss got fired, the feds got involved, and she ended up with massive fines and some quality time in federal timeout.
Looking back, yeah, I'd do it again. Totally by accident, but 100% the right call. Thanks for watching, and I hope these stories gave you a mix of perspective, empathy, and maybe a little bit of awe. Life is unpredictable, and even our smallest actions can have a huge impact on others, for better or worse. Remember, whether it's a laugh, a lesson, or a warning, every story leaves a mark. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life tales that make you think. See you next time.